Hello, ye gads. It's summer. Right behind me is my big show of Little Mermaid, the 20th anniversary show, which was really cool because I got it directly from Disney and for a really good price. So go on our website and check that out. But today I'm going to talk about a client's request, which is housekeeping. So they want to know about how to frame their artwork and how to take care of it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, behind me I have Little Mermaid art, and they are framed, of course. Everything we frame in our gallery is framed the way we think that they need to be taken care of. We always use UV plexiglass. We use UV plexiglass specifically instead of art glass, because when you're dealing with cells, if the glass breaks and it can cut the plastic, which is the celluloid, and a cell refers to the entire piece of plastic, not just the character, not just the image on the plastic. And so you want to keep the integrity of the entire piece of plastic in its original condition. So you want to make sure that it doesn't get cut, because that would actually be damage to a cell. That would be really unfortunate. So that's why we use UV plexiglass. UV because it reduces the ultraviolet rays into the piece, and plexi so it doesn't cut the art. Now, when you have UV plexiglass, you just want to wipe it with a damp cloth when you're cleaning it. Don't use Windex because it'll streak it over time. And a lot of our clients ask us when they're framing things, can you tell the difference between plexiglass and regular glass? And what I show them in the gallery. We have a few things that are framed in glass, and I say pick out the ones that are in glass and in plexi, and nobody can ever do it. But one thing I can tell you is that plexiglass has no color in it at all, and glass has a tiny tint of green to it. So there actually is less intrusion to the original imagery than if you were using glass for it. So that's a little secret for you. And also, sometimes people want to use non-glare glass. Non-glare glass, no matter what it is that you're framing, it reduces the sharpness of the image. So especially if you're going to use it on like concept art, an original drawing or something, you're not going to notice. The further you distance the glass from the image, the more it hazes out and pulls out of focus the sharpness of the image. So we really never use non-glare glass unless it's directly against a poster or something you don't really care about, because generally speaking we don't suggest putting glass directly against any kind of art you care about. Okay, so there's that. So here behind me I have the Little Mermaid cells, and you can sort of see the way that they're framed, which is to say there's an insert or a fillet, depending on what you would like to call them. And it's a little tiny piece of wood that goes on the inside, and then we line underneath the fillet with museum, protective museum paper, whatever the heck it's called, stuff that it's archival, so that it's not actually touching the plastic. The reason we use fillets so much is because on cells, the outline of the character is on the surface of the cell, and the paint is on the back of the cell. And when you're restoring a piece of art that's a cell, what we believe is that once you start restoring the outline, all bets are off, and you really, even when you tell people that it's restored, hopefully nobody restores the ink lines, because that's like, that's sort of going into a whole we repainted the entire cell kind of vibe. So we try to keep the outline in its original condition and keep it perfect. And anything after 1960 is xerographic line anyway, and that you really don't want to mess up. So you want to keep the glass or plexiglass as far away from the surface of the plastic as is humanly possible. And so that's why we use inserts. And if you're not going to use an insert, you can use a double mat or a triple mat, because that'll distance it a fair amount, so that should do you. But we just like the way inserts look, and it makes it look a little bit more finished. The key to it is to make sure we use alpha mat, so we use all mats that have no acid in them. We just prefer it. Actually, if you're not using an insert, the bevel on the inside of the mat, if it's just what they call acid-free, which is sort of a misnomer at this point, because there actually is acid on the inside of the mat, the bevel turns brown over time, which starts looking icky really quickly. So if it's something that you really care about, or it's paper, because paper can get influenced by the acid in the mat really easily and get discolored, then you're going to want to change the mat on it. You can tell by the bevel. Anything that's more than 15 or 20 years old is probably in question. And then even then, if you or whoever it is who framed it didn't want to spend a lot of money, it's just something you want to bear in mind and maybe, you know, consider as you're walking through your house and taking a look at all your stuff. Then the other thing is you're handling your Cels in terms of where you're going to hang it in your house. When you put it on a wall and there's direct light from outside, it's not generally a good idea because, again, it's plastic, so humidity and the temperature outside does affect it. That's stuff you want to consider because the paint can get more volatile and start coming off of the plastic if it gets sharp changes in temperature, which if it's someplace on a wall where it's getting a lot of heat, and then it cools off again constantly, and it's doing that over and over again, this is not a good thing. Don't have to worry about Cels as much as sometimes people think you do, but you definitely don't want to put it on a wall where the door, especially if you live somewhere where it gets hot and cold. If it's a place like, you know, LA or something where it's 70 or 80 degrees all the time, not such a big worry. But if it can get really hot and really cold, like we're in DC, it gets really hot, gets really cold, then you don't want to put it on a wall that's right next to a door going out. Or put it on a wall, if you have an old house, sometimes the pipes with the heat, the water heater or something are inside the walls, and that can affect the art. So just sort of use your best judgment about the temperatures that the art is going to have to be influenced by in its daily life. So those are things to consider. And then if there's a wall that gets indirect sunlight and you put your hand on the art at different times of the day, you know, like just gently put it on the plexi or the glass, and if it feels warm or hot to the touch, move it, because that's not good for the art. So things to consider. Here's an example. We went a little wacky. Here's the insert I was talking about. It's just a little piece of wood. Put it all the way on the inside. And then we just, you know, it's whatever you think in terms of color. A single mat would suffice, but we went a little wacky, as I say. We did 1/4 of an inch on the inside, 1/8 of an inch, and then a fabric mat on the outside. We did an insert and a fabric mat and a black frame on it. And we usually do 3 by 3.5 inches for the mat, but sometimes we'll make a wider mat if we feel like it. It's interesting, let me show you, this matting and framing is what they did at Christie's and Sotheby's for their special auctions for the different movies that they were working on at the time. You know, whether you like the framing or not, you at least want to keep the frame and the mat somewhere so that you can sell it with all of that intact. And then when it comes to interpretive art of Disney, there's an example of something they did. We didn't frame that, but that's perfectly lovely. And here is a Harry Potter piece that we did by Jim Silvati, and it's got a frame, an insert, and a mat. Again, UV plexiglass. Here's a Wile E. Coyote piece. It's got Chuck Jones's actual original signature, and so of course that's really important. You want to use UV plexiglass on any of those. Generally speaking, we've never had anybody have a problem with any of their Chuck Jones signatures, but just in case there's an issue, you want to make sure, again, UV plexiglass reduces the ultraviolet rays. There's a double mat. A lot of the art that people bought at the Warner Brothers stores has the same frame on it, which is this really simple black frame, but we do, you know, a variety of different simple black frames. Try to cover a few things about housekeeping. Questions, comments, give me a call or email us, and we'll see what we can do to help you. Have a great day.